Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today, based on popular demand, I'm creating a video how to compile evidence as part of your school experience folders. Now, I'm trying to cover as much as I can how you are going to document your experiences, and a lot of that documentation will come from the evidence you collate throughout your school experiences and throughout the PGCE year. I have been asked by several people what the different terminology means in regards to what they've basically been told by the uni, and I did get a little bit confused personally at the start. It was explained to me, don't get me wrong, I was told what the different words meant. I think it was just more of a case until you get into school and you get round your head the system and how things are documented, you will and you potentially might feel a little bit confused in relation to how things kind of work and how things are documented. So at BCU, we were given an SEPJ folder. Basically what this means, it's a school experience journal, and you'll be given 2 of these to work on throughout your school experiences. All this basically means is that you will need to purchase yourself a folder, at least one, it might go over into 2, whereby you will be given at BCU definitely, and I would guess at other institutes, a pack which you will need to fill out every week. These packs, they consist of weekly meetings that you will record evidence written down into, and your mentor will give you a mark towards. This will also include targets that your mentor will set you, that they want you to complete or work towards over the next few weeks. It will also include time for you to reflect, so areas where you feel like you're improving or areas that you want to improve. And lots of the general other things. I don't want to overcomplicate this because at your BCU you will probably know, or at other institutions you're probably aware of the different types of resources you will and will not be given. So what I will say in regards to evidence is what BCU provided was at the first page, and if you haven't got this, what I would do is create it, was a list of the teacher's standards, not just the teacher's standards but the subheadings and the subtitles for each of these teacher's standards, so 1A, 1B, 1C, etc. And what they did is they created a tally that you could tick and write towards how many pieces of evidence you'd collated throughout that school experience, and also what mark you'd been given. Marks, now this might sound like a little bit of a weird one. How can we be marked in regards to evidence, okay? What this basically means is that throughout your school experience, you will work your way through the teacher's standards, and you will work your way through being almost like a novice to hopefully somewhat of a expert, or, well, no one's 100% an expert, but you get what I'm trying to refer to. You're going to work your way through that scale. Now at BCU there were 4 different levels: emerging, establishing, embedding and enhancing. And this is what the lowest to the highest level were. Now, do not worry in your first few weeks or your first placement if you do not walk out with all enhancings in every single standard, because chances are you are not going to. I will say in my first placement, by the end, I walked out with a few enhancings, a few embeddings and a few establishings. So I got a range across the board. And I did feel a little bit disappointed, but I kind of sat there and thought, I've only been teaching, 7 weeks? Some things you can't be enhancing at yet because you physically haven't had that time to show your progression. And this is where there'll be a natural flow into your school experience too, where hopefully you'll start to see a rise, sometimes a fall, but a nice rise to how you're working through each substandard of the big teacher standard in regards to evidence. Now, when you're looking at evidencing your teacher's practice, there are different types of documents that you can create, that you can use as part of your evidence. So, the best way to say this is that the evidence for each standard will very much depend on the nature of that standard. So I'll give you a big example. Standard 7, so looking at behaviour. Obviously, behaviour is something that is observed, and you can only get evidence from this from being observed. So what I would highly suggest is, as part of BCU and probably most institutions for education for a PGCE or ITT training, you will be required to be observed. At BCU, this was twice a week. And what I did is I made sure that I put standard 7 down and the substandards enough throughout my first placement. Now, you will find at the end of your placement that you might not have been observed in absolutely every substandard more than once. And again, this is fine. But what you want to think about is there are some standards like standard 7 that will be difficult to evidence if you haven't been observed. Whereas standard 4, evidence can consist of lesson plans, schemes of work, resources you've created, homework you've created, and you get the general idea. But some standards, because it is simply your persona in the classroom, this is something that needs to be observed by your mentor. In regards to evidence, anything that you can bring or you can show evidence-wise that relates to a standard, put it in your folder. Every little thing counts. But again, don't worry by the end of your first school placement if you don't have equal balances of evidence for each standards. Your teachers, your mentors and your tutors will 100% understand this. So some standards, for instance, part 2 of the teacher's standards, what I found in my first placement really difficult to get evidence from. Part 2 you want to be thinking about is that the evidence is a register, thinking about how you're professional in making sure you're going to meetings, how you conduct yourself around the school, how you talk to staff. And again, part 2 is a lot of this will come from observations and notes you've got from your mentor. Other things that you can use as evidence are conversations you've had with other members of staff, as long as you get this documented and signed by members of staff. Emails, any training you have been to, 100% can go down in your evidence folder. Any clubs you've ran. Pretty much what I'm trying to say about evidence is that everything you do as a teacher can be evidenced. However, as you'll probably get in your head around, they will be documented in different ways. So this is why you will need to carry out some things and document it yourself and get it signed, whereas other pieces of evidence you can straight away annotate, put in your folder, and all you require is your teacher or your mentor to authorise this as being your own work and evidence. Anything else to say in regards to evidence and folders? I would just try and keep it organised. So what I did is in the back of my folder, I was recommended by my tutor to keep all my evidence together and keep it organised from standard 1 to standard 8. However, there may be some pieces of evidence that do fall into more than one standard. 100% this is fine, but what I would do is make a note on this piece of evidence how it addresses the other substandards and why. I wouldn't worry. Well, I understand that evidence is a big worry, and it will be something that you might feel sometimes you don't have enough or you have too much of. But what I would recommend in regards to evidence is just be thinking about how you can really show off what you have been contributing to the school, what your teacher persona shows about you, and how you can evidence that through documentation. Anything else I can say in regards to evidence? Oh, evidence! Thinking about, you will be given an action plan. So this is a PDP, so it's a professional development professional development program. Sorry BCU if I don't get that quite right, but basically it's something that's personal to you and it's something that you want to develop and work towards, and you'll be set targets, for instance, by your tutors back at the uni. And usually you will have meetings every so often, every few weeks, to see how you're getting along. If you can show in your school or outside of school that you are working towards these targets in practice, 100% evidence them. They can still go inside your school experience folder, because what your PDP should act as is targets that you can work towards and develop within your first school and second school placement. Anything else in regards to evidence? Probably something will come to me, but if there are any other thoughts or any queries that you have in regards to evidence, please leave a comment below and I'll try to get my answers back. However, I would generally say with evidence, as much as you can document down, I would do. File things straight away, because sometimes, as all teachers do, you can lose things, so really make sure you have got it down and it is signed. But hopefully this video acts as a little bit of support and a little bit further guidance on how to evidence and how to present your folders in regards to what to expect within your school experience throughout both schools.